Absolutely. So, without further ado, I'm going to pass over to the man himself, Brian Tracy.
Whenever I hear those things, it's such a great honor, and to have you all come out here is just overwhelming. Thank you very much. My roots are in the UK. My father grew up in Liverpool, and so I'm half English. He immigrated to Canada when he was a young man and met my mother, who was from an Irish family, so I'm half Irish as well. So I'm very much a child of the Commonwealth. And when I agreed to come over here and speak for Shush, he was very grateful, and Gary, he said, but you know, we can't pay you anything. And I said, well, that's all right. I'll come in. I won't charge you anything, just to have an opportunity to help grow this business. And he said, but just because we can't pay you anything doesn't mean that you don't give a good talk. So I said, no, I promise I'll come and I'll be good for nothing. and so here I am. I started off my career quite humbly, and I began asking at a very early age, why are some people more successful than others? And I came from a poor family. We never had any money, and I worked at laboring jobs for several years. I lived in my car. I slept on the ground. I missed meals. I never had any money at all. I worried about money all the time. And I kept asking, why are some people more successful than others? And I learned later that at a certain point in your life, a question can hit you like a billiard ball and cause you to go off in a different direction. And that became the operating question. And I began to ask people and began to read and look and listen and so on. And what I found is that successful people do things differently from unsuccessful people. And the research is absolutely enormous. The starting point is that successful people think differently than unsuccessful people. Now, our thinking is pretty much inherited. Most people develop all of their thinking styles in childhood by their associations with their parents and so on. But then most people just go on like Old Man River. They just go on for the rest of their lives, and they never question those thoughts. I remember a story of a gentleman named Glenn Bland. He wrote one book. It's called The Glenn Bland Method. And he told this story, which was really relevant. He said that he went to school, and his father was a working man. And his father said, you know, the Blands are working people. We only work for a living. We never get ahead. We never succeed. That is part of our family tradition. And no matter what happened, they never had any money. He would complain. He said, well, that's the way it is in the Bland family. Kids in the Bland family never succeed. They always work at laboring jobs. So he got out of school, and he went to work, and he was working at a laboring job, and he's working on a construction job on the highway, and he's working with a shovel, and it's hot, and he's dirty, and he's sweaty. And a friend of his, the traffic was going very slow, it was just inching along, and there's a friend of his in a new car that he went to high school with. That guy wasn't very bright or incredibly smart or anything. And this guy's nicely dressed, driving a new car, and he slows down. He says, hi, Glenn, how are you doing? He says, great. And he's talking. He's talking. He said, what you doing there? He said, well, I'm just working here on the highway. So what are you doing? He said, well, I've got a job. I'm in sales. I'm building a business. He said, I'm making good money and everything else. And he looked at that guy, and suddenly it was like a door swung and slammed him in the face. He said, it was just like lights went off. He realized, that guy's no better, no smarter than me. He's got no more talents. And he's successful, and he realized his father had sold him a bill of goods. He had bought the wrong story. And he said, the heck with this, or something a little bit more colorful. He threw his shovel down, he got out of that ditch, he went and he got a job in sales, and he struggled, and he worked his way up, and about 6 years later, he was a millionaire. And he said the turning point in his life was when he changed his thinking about himself. So one of the things that we encourage people to do is take the very highest income that you've ever had in your life. And think about that. What was the best year that you ever had? And then put a 0 on the end. And that's your true potential. Now when you do that the first time your body, like it rejects a new organ, it rejects, it kicks out. It's almost, you put it in, it kicks back out. It's like one of those machines that doesn't accept your credit card. And a psychologist demonstrated, and what he did is he said what you do is you just say X to 10X. And it's a very interesting process. It's one of those things we talk about, you have to read a lot of things. And you come across this process, this obscure psychologist had come up with just X to 10X. So you take your highest income and you imagine earning 10 times as much. And the more you turn it over in your mind, the more, first of all, you reject it. But as you turn it over in your mind, you don't reject it as much. As you turn it over in your mind, you start to think, well, maybe that's possible. And then what you do is you start to activate your superconscious mind. And we talk in our programs about setting goals and setting priorities and making plans. And each time that you take a goal and you write it down and you make a plan to achieve it, the actual writing, not computer, between your brain and your hand, it's called a psychoneuromotor activity. I learned that word so I could impress people. It's a psychoneuromotor activity. You think, you feel, you write, and what it does is it programs it into your subconscious mind. Almost like programming something into a computer, and then you can go on with your life and the computer keeps processing. And so your superconscious mind starts to attract into your life people, ideas, inspiration, circumstances that make it possible. There's a process that you've heard about, it's called serendipity. And serendipity is defined as the process of making happy discoveries. Is that you find things that seem to conspire together to bring you the things you want in life. You meet the right person, you read the right article, you get the right email or phone call, and so on. It's called serendipity, happy discoveries. So what they found, and by the way, this is a common factor that you can tap into. What they found is that people who seem to have serendipitous, wonderfully coincidental experiences are people that are characterized by one thing. They're looking. Nobody has a serendipitous experience sitting there watching television at night, or reading the paper, or drinking in the bar. In other words, first people who have these make these happy discoveries are people who are looking. And so one of the most important requirements for success, again based on years and years of research which I've done, is ambition. Ambition means that you're hungry. Is that you're hungry. You want to be successful. You want to be successful more than almost anything else. And you'll find that after decades of socialism in any country, most people become passive and they become negative about themselves and their potential. And they fall into what we call the tall poppy syndrome. Anybody's ever been to Australia knows about the tall poppy syndrome. The tall poppy syndrome it's an outgrowth of socialism where we look at people who are successful and we sneer at them and we criticize them and we cut down the tall poppies. And that's what in Australia they say for years and years, it's changed a lot now. If a person was successful, they were in great danger because people would turn on them and criticize them and sneer at them and insult them and so on because they were successful. What they were doing, they were just burning up inside with jealousy and envy, and they took it out on those people. Well, one of the things that we find in success is that there's a law of attraction and there's also a law of repulsion. And the law of attraction says you attract into your life the thoughts that you emotionalize. So if you emotionalize the thought of being successful and being happy and being healthy and having a wonderful life, if you emotionalize it, it creates a mental charge and you send out a force field of energy that attracts it into your life, like a magnet. But there's also a law of repulsion, and that says that whatever thought you think that is negative, you actually repel it out of your life. So let's say I look at Shush and he's doing really well, and I say, yeah, but he's not happy, and he's a lousy driver, and so on and so on. So I think of the things that are wrong with him. He's probably stole his money anyway because he ripped off the poor people. You know, they always say that if you have any money, it means you ripped off the poor people. I studied this subject for years, but it's the same as saying that if one person is sick, it's because somebody else is healthy. Now, if you said that, well, the reason he's sick is because you're healthy. You'd say, that doesn't make any sense. There's no relationship between the two. I'm healthy because I eat well and I exercise, take good care of myself. This person is sick because they don't. No, so no. If you're healthy, if you're healthy, it's because this person is sick, or if this person is sick, it's because you're healthy. So we say the reason some people are doing better is because other people are doing poorly. If the only reason people can be successful is because other people are failing. And there's no relationship between the two. But this is the basic premise of socialism. So what happens is, and I tell the people this, is admire successful people. When you admire successful people and you respect them and you read their books and you listen to their materials, you set up a force field of energy that attracts into your life opportunities to be like them. You know, we talked about the mastermind concept. When Napoleon Hill, remember we talked about Napoleon Hill? When Napoleon Hill did his studies, he found something that was like 17 vital principles for success. The story is very interesting. But what he found was the turning point was the mastermind, and that's when people began to get together with other positive people. and stop associating with negative people. Get them out of your life. You see two negative people coming towards you, introduce them to each other, and send them off.